Filipino tennis star Alex Eala is expected to compete first in the Strasbourg Open in France this weekend. The 20-year-old Filipino tennis sensation enters the tournament fresh off an impressive round of 32 finish at the Italian Open, where she pushed world number 2 Elena.
Australian Open in a way that I haven't really seen any player do before. Certainly not someone as new on the scene. So making
Nobody saw this coming. Not the tournament directors, not the tennis analysts, not even the players who've spent their entire careers grinding to reach this level. A 20-year-old walked into one of Europe's most prestigious tennis events, and within hours, something shifted. Not just in the draw, not just in the stands. Something shifted in the entire conversation around the sport, and the strangest part? She hadn't even played a single point yet. That's the thing about Alexandra Eala that nobody can fully explain with statistics or rankings or career win-loss records. There's something happening around her that goes beyond tennis, something that feels less like a sports story and more like the opening chapter of something much, much larger. But to understand what's unfolding right now in Strasbourg, France, you have to go back to a moment most people have already forgotten. A moment in 2009 when this very tournament almost ceased to exist entirely. Picture it. One of France's oldest tennis events, nestled beside the European Parliament, a venue where history and sport have quietly intersected for decades, suddenly standing at the edge of extinction. No funding, no future. The courts were still there. The clay was still red. But the tournament? Gone. Except it wasn't. Because one man refused to let it disappear. Denis Naegelen, a former professional player from the Alsace region of France, a man with clay in his DNA and an almost stubborn belief in what this event could become, stepped in through his company and saved it from collapse. He didn't just rescue it, he rebuilt it from the foundation. Year by year, quietly and methodically, he transformed what was nearly a footnote in tennis history into a WTA 500 event, one of the most respected warm-up tournaments before Roland Garros on the entire calendar. And now, 15 years after that rescue, standing on the courts he rebuilt, Denis Naegelen is watching something unfold that even he admits feels different from anything he's experienced before. Not because of a result, not because of a title, because of a name, and what that name carries with it. Alexandra Eala arrived in Strasbourg ranked inside the top 40 in the world. Let that sink in for a second, because the top 40 in women's tennis isn't a participation award, it isn't a courtesy ranking. It is earned through wins, through losses that teach you something brutal, through hours on courts across multiple continents in weather conditions that don't care about your comfort or your preparation. At 20 years old, she sits inside that group. But the ranking alone doesn't explain the atmosphere surrounding this tournament right now. The search trends exploding globally. The social media timelines flooding with her name. The tournament that most casual tennis fans couldn't locate on a map a week ago now appearing on screens and conversations from Manila to Madrid to Melbourne. None of that comes from a ranking. That comes from something else entirely. Something the tennis world is only beginning to fully reckon with. Over 110 million people in the Philippines are not casually following Alexandra Eala. They are invested in a way that rewires the energy of every tournament she enters. These are fans who set alarms for 3 a.m., who track every single point with the kind of intensity usually reserved for World Cup finals, who turn a first-round match in Strasbourg into a national moment. And when that kind of collective energy attaches itself to a player on tour, something physical happens to the event itself. The atmosphere changes. The noise level changes. The global footprint of the tournament changes overnight. Denis Naegelen, a man who has hosted Grand Slam champions and watched generations of talent walk through those gates, acknowledged it openly. Something about this moment is different. Something about the scale of attention surrounding Eala doesn't fit the usual template of a promising young player generating local buzz. This is global traction, and it's accelerating. But here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because the hype would mean nothing, absolutely nothing, if the tennis wasn't real. And the tennis is very, very real. Eala trained at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca. Before you move past that sentence, stay with it for a moment. That academy was built on a specific philosophy, discipline that doesn't negotiate with excuses, clay court endurance that gets constructed over thousands of hours, not weeks. A mental framework shaped by watching one of the greatest champions in the history of the sport operate with relentless focus day after day. That's the environment that forged her game. That's the foundation underneath every shot she hits. But here's the tension nobody talks about enough. Training at an elite academy, even one of the best in the world, is one thing. Stepping onto a professional WTA clay court against players who've spent a decade mastering every nuance of the surface is something entirely different. The bounce is heavier, the rallies are longer, the margins are smaller, and the mental weight of every point in a high-stakes professional match carries a pressure that no practice session can fully simulate. Eala knew this. Her coaches knew this. And so this season became a deliberate, methodical education. Linz, Stuttgart, Madrid, each tournament a lesson, each match a piece of data. She wasn't just competing. She was building something, layering her professional clay court identity one match at a time, absorbing information from losses the way a student marks up the margins of a textbook. And then came Rome, the Italian Open, a major clay event. High-ranked, opponents on every side of the draw, conditions as demanding as anywhere outside Paris, and something clicked. She moved through the draw with a composure that felt new, a shot selection that felt sharper, a defensive intensity that turned pressure points into control. When she reached the third round and stepped across the net from Elena Rybakina, the world number 2 most expected a quick, clinical lesson. What happened instead left people recalibrating their expectations in real time. She competed, not just survived, competed, pushed Rybakina into uncomfortable moments, demonstrated that her ceiling in these conditions wasn't just theoretical anymore. It was visible. It was measurable. And when the match ended, something had shifted permanently in how the tennis world was going to talk about Alexandra Eala going forward. She said it herself on the Tennis Channel, calmly and without exaggeration, that she's a better player this year than she was at this same point last year. She said she's had struggles on clay, but also genuinely good matches. She said she's excited for what's ahead. The simplicity of those words makes them easy to scroll past. Don't. Because that's the voice of a 20-year-old who has started to trust herself on a surface that once felt uncertain, and that trust, once it takes root, in a professional athlete at this level tends to produce results that arrive faster than anyone predicted, which brings everything to Strasbourg. Right now, this week, this tournament, May 17th through May 23rd. 7 days that carry more weight than the calendar suggests. Because exactly 1 week after Strasbourg concludes, the gates of Roland Garros open, the French Open, the most demanding clay court event on the planet, 2 weeks on the same surface, the same grinding, physical, mentally exhausting surface that separates clay specialists from everyone else in the sport. The conditions in Strasbourg right now are not similar to Paris. They are essentially identical. European clay at this time of year carries a specific heaviness, a specific rhythm to the rallies, a specific requirement for patience and point construction that you cannot manufacture artificially. Every match Eala plays this week isn't preparation, in the abstract sense. It is a live rehearsal on the same stage, with the same props, under the same conditions, against opponents who are fighting with equal urgency because they're all doing exactly the same thing, preparing for Paris. Look at the names in this draw and feel the weight of it. Madison Keys, Emma Raducanu, Leylah Fernandez, Maria Sakkari, Emma Navarro, Ekaterina Alexandrova. These are not warm-up opponents. These are not players coasting into a tournament to get some extra court time. Every single name in that lineup arrives battle-hardened, tournament-tested, and focused with the precision of someone who understands that what happens in Strasbourg can directly determine what happens at Roland Garros. That's the field Eala is navigating at 20 years old, in just her 5th professional clay court tournament at this level. 5th. The number is almost difficult to process when you consider the ranking she currently holds and the level of opposition she's already been pushing through. Most players in their 5th clay tournament at this level are still finding their footing, still discovering the patterns and instincts that the surface demands. Eala is doing something different. She's not just finding her footing, she's starting to own the ground beneath it. And yet, and this is the part that makes the next few days genuinely unpredictable. Clay at the highest level has a way of humbling. Players who arrive with momentum, it rewards consistency, not just brilliance. It punishes mental lapses in ways that faster surfaces don't, because the rallies are longer, the errors cost more, and the physical accumulation of a deep run on clay is unlike anything else in the sport. The question hanging over Strasbourg isn't whether Eala belongs here. That question has already been answered. The question is whether the final piece, the back-to-back match intensity, the recovery, the mental recalibration between rounds on a surface that demands absolute focus, whether that piece is ready. Rome suggested it's close. Strasbourg will tell us how close. Here's what makes this specific moment in her development so fascinating to watch. She is still in a stage where her ceiling is genuinely unclear. Not in a vague, anything is possible way. In a specific, measurable, this is actually happening way. Her level has been visibly rising inside the same season. From Stuttgart to Madrid to Rome, the trajectory wasn't flat. It was climbing. When a player's level is still rising during an active swing, predictions become unstable in the most exciting possible way. She could walk out in the first round and play the most complete clay court match of her career. She could face an opponent who exposes a pattern that still needs work. Both outcomes teach her something irreplaceable. Both outcomes have value. But one of them, the one where she finds her rhythm early and builds through the week, has the potential to send her into Roland Garros with a confidence that changes everything about how Paris unfolds for her. She has already secured direct entry into the Roland Garros main draw. No qualifying, no wildcards, no favors. Merit, pure and straightforward. The draw sheet at the French Open will have her name on it because she earned that placement through ranking points accumulated in legitimate professional competition against the best players in the world. That matters, not just symbolically, practically. Players who enter Grand Slams through qualifying arrive mentally and physically depleted before the main draw even begins. Eala arrives fresh. She arrives with the full benefit of a structured clay court swing as her preparation. She arrives, if Strasbourg goes well, with match rhythm already locked in. And for a player at her stage of development, those variables compound in significant ways. But none of this exists in isolation, because woven through every moment of this story, underneath every statistic and every match report and every tournament result, is something larger. Over 110 million people watching a 20-year-old carry something that can't be measured in rankings or prize money or head-to-head records. She carries the weight of a nation's belief. A country that has watched her grow from a talented junior into a top 40 professional with the quiet confidence of people who always suspected this moment was coming. That's a different kind of weight, not heavier in a way that slows you down. Heavier in a way that clarifies exactly what you're playing for on days when the match gets difficult and the easy path is to give a point away. Eala has talked about it. Her coaches have talked about it. The way the Filipino community shows up for her, the collective energy that travels from Manila to wherever she's competing, creates something in the atmosphere around her matches that experienced tournament. Directors and broadcasters have noticed and openly acknowledged. Denis Naegelen noticed it the moment the draw was announced. The Strasbourg Open's visibility expanded immediately. Not gradually. Immediately. That's the Eala effect arriving in real time in a city most of those new viewers had to look up on a map. And Strasbourg, this tournament that one man rebuilt from near collapse 15 years ago, now finds itself on a global stage it could not have manufactured through any marketing strategy or broadcast deal. One player's presence did that. One 20-year-old whose story is still in its opening chapters. So here's where everything lands right now, in this specific moment, with Strasbourg underway and Paris 1 week away. Nobody can honestly hand you a guarantee. Not a deep run at Roland Garros, not a title in Strasbourg. Not a specific round or a specific result. Anyone offering those kinds of certainties isn't watching the same sport. Clay tennis at the Grand Slam level is where every variable gets stress-tested over 2 weeks against the best competition in the world, and experience, physical depth, and match control all get exposed. What can be said, what the evidence from this entire season genuinely supports, is that Alexandra Eala is no longer a player you pencil into easy exits. She is a player who makes draws uncomfortable for higher-ranked opponents. She is a player whose level is still climbing. She is a player who walks onto a clay court now and competes with the kind of composure that her ranking reflects, and her results are beginning to validate. A third-round push at Roland Garros is realistic. A round of 16 is possible if the form peaks and the draw offers the right sequence. A quarterfinal would be one of the tournament's defining stories. Anything beyond that would mean Alexandra Eala has just written one of the most remarkable chapters in Filipino sports history in real time, on the most demanding clay court surface in the world, in front of an audience of hundreds of millions of people who have been waiting for exactly this moment. And none of that would exist without a near-extinct tournament in Alsace, without a man named Denis Naegelen who refused to let it disappear, without 5 years of clay court education at a Majorcan academy, without a nation of 110 million people, setting alarms in the middle of the night to watch someone they already believe in. Strasbourg this week isn't a warm-up, it isn't a footnote. It is the last page before the chapter everyone has been waiting for. And the story, right now, is only just beginning.